So if I'm being completely honest, I had no idea what a lighting nightmare it was going to be to simply flip the camera around. I think lighting's probably the biggest thing I've struggled with, actually, and I have my kind of lighting set back here, but now it's all backwards. So I'm just going to do this wide shot once because there was really no way to get the lights not in the shot. But I wanted you to see the general idea of sort of my brain and how I like to have things worked. So let me turn my back to you for a second. But the idea is this is the workstation, and I've got two monitors here and a TV, speakers, all kind of clustered together left and right. Right here is my volume. I can switch between my speakers and check phase and all that kind of stuff. Then I just do this. I can play things and have a lot of fun. I go over here and I do this. I can play things and have a lot of fun. And what we'll do now is zero in on each specific area so you're not stuck with this slightly fuzzy out of focus wide shot. Here's my general workstation and pretty much where I sit 8 to 10 hours out of the day. The desk is nothing fancy. I had this amazing custom desk in my old studio that actually mimicked the shape of the way I have everything set up right now. The downside is it was so big that it actually won't fit up here at the moment. So I'm going to have to cut a bigger door or something in the house in order to be able to get that desk up here. But in the meantime, this totally works great. I've got right now actually towels over the windows to kind of control the lighting a little bit since the cameras are reversed. Normally there's tons of daylight in here. I don't like dark studios, so I've got lots of natural light. The Phantom G8, I've had that for probably 6 or 7 years now. What I really love about it is I've got these 8 faders here, and you can see I've got some professionally installed masking tape here. So 1, 2, 7, 11, 16, CTA. The CTAs are the 3 different mic positions for Spitfire. And the knobs also do continuous controllers. And that's pretty much all of my real-time parameters. Another professionally installed scotch-taped wooden dowel left over from, I believe, Dead Space 2. And that's holding up my iPad. This is normally a screen that has data, but I don't need the screen. So this is the touchpad that I use with Cubase. I'll have another entire episode covering the touchpad and how I do everything with the commands and share those commands as well, so you guys can pretty much pick up and do the exact same thing if you'd like. I usually have my laptop over here on the left because I'm checking email and doing things like that. The main computer is normally not hooked up to the internet. I'm using PCs, but I do have a Mac keyboard, and that's just because I used Macs for such a long time, and I really love the way that keyboard feels, so I kept it and bought 3 more. Just quick tip, if you pour coffee or water on there, it doesn't do well for the lifespan of the keyboard, so you might want to have a backup. The Kensington Turbo Mouse to the right, I've been using Turbo Mouse since I don't remember when, and I don't have any fast commands or anything super fancy like that on that. I just kind of use the right bottom key for double click, the left key is click. I can click on both keys at the bottom and that'll bring up the little menu. I think that's like the control menu maybe in Windows, and the wheel around the ball will allow me to scroll up and down or side to side. Nice little notepad and coffee, always important. The mouse on top of the Roland Phantom is just to control the Phantom itself. You can have a mouse interface and a keyboard there. And my 2 monitors and the TV, I'll put those specific models and everything in the description of the video, but they have a slight curve to them, which is why you can see them kind of just barely kind of curving out to the outside of the keyboard. I really like it because I will have things set up mostly the way you see here, where this window is kind of the equivalent of a 4x3 monitor. So it's like having 4 4x3 monitors set up. And a lot of times my right window is full screen just like that. If I need to edit any MIDI, it pops up on that left window where you see that MIDI data, and then usually I will have my plugins over to the left like we have there, and then my mixing board up on the top TV screen. Now if I'm working on a cinematic for a game or a film or TV show, the top TV screen will be full screen with the picture on it, and then I will just kind of use my mixing boards down on the bottom left. Regular computer screen. Monitors, I've got, what are those little Avatones? Avantones? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Great little, just classic. Make it kind of sound like this. No low end whatsoever, accentuating the high end a little bit. I think Auratone was the original company, and they were mono. So if you would be in mix rooms, they'd have like an Auratone sitting as a mono source. I like the idea of being able to listen in stereo and then switch to mono if I want to. So I've got the Avantones in stereo, and then the Bose are actually just $99 computer speakers that I got at the Apple Store years ago. Stereo again. And then the big ones are ATC, I think they're SCM25A Pros. I'll put the actual name in the description as well, but just fantastic, fantastic speakers. I had some really big passive monitors with external amps and crossovers and everything before, and these have the amps built into them. Three-way speaker, they sound absolutely phenomenal. And I switch between all these using my Avocet controller, which we will get to when we move to the right side of my gear setup and talk about that. And then I've got some just salt lamps because I love the vibe that they give off. It's a nice subdued light that's not too direct, and I usually leave those on pretty much 24 hours a day. So if I have to stumble in here at night after I've finished for the day, I don't have to kick a bunch of lights on and try to see where I'm going. They're just kind of glowing. Over there to the right, just to the edge of the screen, you can see a nice large diaphragm condenser. That's a Neumann M149, which is just a beautiful, beautiful transformerless tube mic, which we'll have some geeky sessions on microphones in the future, but let's just say it sounds amazing on everything, and I have it always sitting there and always plugged in and hooked up to a preamp. So if I need to record anything, I'm totally set. I just hit the button. And likewise, as sort of a stereo mirror on the far left, that's a Telefunken small diaphragm condenser, also a tube mic, but it does have a transformer in it. So while being a really clear, punchy, tubey kind of sound, it does impart a lot more vibe and character than a transformerless mic would. So the idea is between the small diaphragm tube on the left and the large diaphragm tube on the right, I've got a decent choice to start out if I want to record things. And I have a couple of other microphones set up around as well that we'll get to when we get to their respective sections. So this is just the right side of my workstation. Why don't we work from the bottom up, the way I think about it? Now, you're going to have to put up with me pointing to things, but I'm not going to be scrunching down like this. I'm just going to stand up. So this is the Crane Song Avocet. And what's really amazing about it is it's a controller, and it has 3 different set of outputs that I can switch between, plus a headphone cue, plus a talkback mic, plus different inputs. It's got a mono button, a dim button, and a mute, and obviously this is volume. So when I'm playing music, these are meters that honestly are worth like $10,000 because it's great to have a pair of hardware meters for me to reference. I also can have an LFE on or off, and it's got a bunch of digital stuff that I don't even use because I just don't really feel like I need it for what I'm working on. But it is really great because I can change my sources, I can change my speakers, I can use headphones, which, by the way, so my headphones, DT770 Pros, Bear Dynamics, really, really like those. So a lot of times when I'm working, I will switch between those 3 speakers that I was showing you a minute ago and the headphones, and that's all controlled via the Avocet. One thing that's really important that we'll probably do a quick tip or something about is I always listen at this level. And if I want to listen to it quieter, I have a dim switch set up. And that way it's always the same quiet level, always the same loud level. And that way I have a really good idea in terms of overall volume in the room itself, even if I'm starting a new piece, how loud it really is. Is it the proper level? Is it not? And that's the kind of thing, monitoring at consistent levels can go a long way to really helping you get an idea for how loud your mix truly is relative to everything else. So this is kind of the first port of call for me. I'm constantly using this. That's why I have it right here. Up at the top, we've got some of the guitar pedals that I like to use. Now with guitar pedals, the signal actually goes this way. And I have, I believe, 3 separate sets of ins and outs here. So this is hell, that's what I call it. So if I want to send it to some serious distortion, I just send it to hell, ba-da-boom. But I've got a compressor, a nice little maximizer, and then 2 kind of classic distortion boxes. I've got the Infinite Jets, which is an amazing mono, crazy synth, do a little bit of everything processor on its own independent send from Cubase, as well as the Electron analog drive, which is MIDI as well. That's why we've got MIDI channels here, MIDI cables. So you can change the patches, and what I really love is it has an EQ built into it. So we've got all kinds of different distortion here, plus the EQ and the level, and those are all configurable and recallable via MIDI, which is why I really wanted to have that box. And then this is the Eventide Space, which is just a really, really great sounding reverb box. There is a VST equivalent called Eventide Black Hole, which is one of the presets off of this box. And if you really want to get that sound and you don't want to spend the money on a pedal and everything that it takes to integrate it into your setup, you can get the plugin version. Plus you can have more than one instance running at once. So that's a lot of the hardware versus software back and forth that we've talked about before. Stereo reverb, which is great, USB and MIDI, so it's recallable. It's got the same thing with the EQs and everything, just beautiful. Now down here is the patch bay. And if I were sitting in a chair, I'd be right about here. And it's literally like arm's distance for me, which works out really, really well. All of my signals are going into the back of this patch bay. The idea is, if I want to record drums, which I think is what these were set up for right now, I've got my drum mics patched into the first 10 inputs into the machine room. So then the microphones are going into the inputs and I can record them. These other things are just various synthesizers, and patch bays are a whole other thing we'll talk about another time, but that's why I have it right here under the light, easy to get to. And then these are my 10 favorite preamps, basically. I'm using this one right now for the microphone that I'm wearing. MIDI interface, straightforward. I've got 3 of these. 2 8-channel ones, one on each side, left and right, and then another one in the machine room for the Bricastis. Dave Smith Tempest, which is just essentially a Prophet 6 synthesizer plus sampled drums, and it does a little bit of everything. Hey, sweetheart, let's put you over here for a moment. You can really do anything with this. It's got infinite possibilities and a super amazing sound. And actually, what triggered me recording this video is I just wrapped up one project and I'm getting ready to start another one, and the drum machines are going to be put away for a while. And I'm bringing some more synthesizers over here. So this is all a super scalable, flexible kind of setup, and it's very much project driven, just the way like all my purchases are project driven. So the Tempest, I love it. It's incredible. MIDI and everything else, just really, really great. Same thing with the Analog Rhythm. I guess that's the way you say it. Rhythm Mark II. Just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful synth. The pads, really, really nice. And where the Tempest is 100% analog, the Electron is kind of 50-50. There's a lot of analog sources in there, but the output, while being analog here, you have the choice of outputting from a USB and have it be digital. Plus, it's got all kinds of great effects. Delay, reverb, distortion, compressor, all digital effects, but they really, really do sound nice. And you can tweak those and have them set up any way you want. And it's great to have that saved as a preset with your sounds, and then you don't have to worry about stacking plugins up on Cubase. This is just a fun little Chaos Pad, silly DJ thing that I've got hooked up. So if I want to do some just super quick edits, stutters, fades, anything like that, it's great to have that kind of control. And I'll run a whole mix through that and then kind of copy it back and forth depending on what I want it to do. I got these in tandem together I wanted to have a small keyboard that I could put over here. So if I wanted to trigger something like the peak, for example, I didn't want to have to go all the way back over there. I wanted to be able to kind of do this and tweak it while I'm going. This has amazing sounds. If you're looking at a beginning synthesizer for analog outboard, I can't recommend this enough. It's $200 or $300, monophonic, but it has presets. So as you can see, as I'm scrolling through, all the lights are changing because you can save presets and recall them via MIDI. Super clean, really fat, and deeply programmable. So I got this actually just as a keyboard to drive this, which is an 8-voice multi-timbral synth that also sounds really, really great. And it's wonderful because you've got all the knobs and faders and everything to mess with. But a lot of times when I'm programming this, I just play here. So they sort of get used at the same time. And then Mogerfoger from Moog, which is just a super cool multi, like 8-band filter that's automatable, and it's got, a lot of times I'll just use the drive, which is really nice. But I can't say enough about Moog and all of their products. They're just absolutely fantastic. And here is another microphone that I have set up. Let's see. There we go. It's a Cascade. It's called a Fathead. I think this might be the second Fathead, and it's gold because it had a fancier transformer in it or something like that. But it's a ribbon mic, very, very, very dark. And it's over here because I've been doing some bowed cymbals and bowed gongs and things like that, and it's great for recording stuff with lots of high-end transients because it captures them really, really smoothly. So that's just kind of sitting here ready to go, just like the other two microphones that I was showing you to the left and the right of my workstation. And you can't even see it, can you? Right here, these are just little LED, I think they're reading lamps, but I just have them clipped on and sort of sitting up there to help illuminate everything so I can see it a lot better. And I just got those off of Amazon, pretty straightforward. And the racks and everything I built just to fit all this stuff. I'm not much of a carpenter or anything like that. I did build a picture frame before I tried this. I just did them myself in the garage and painted them black, used some inexpensive wood, glued them together, made sure everything was nice and tight. So let's take a look at the left side. I've got somewhere between 8 and 10 external synths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 or 12 external synths, and probably 2/3 of them are out at any one point in time. I'll trade them in and out, but I got to tell you, this baby right here and this gorgeous thing right here are always out. I love the sound of Moog so much. It does not matter that they're manufactured here in North Carolina in Asheville, which is where I went on my honeymoon and just absolutely love that town. These synths are just so fat. They sit so well in any mix, and they're just so easy to make sound good. I use them all the time, all the time. I've got MIDI, and they have on-screen VST editors that you can use on the computer as well. I use both of those, and I'll do patch recalls that way, and even record automation and things via the editor, which is brilliant. Specifically, it's a sub-fatty on the right, which is a great entry Moog synth if you're looking for something with lots of flexibility, not having to do menu diving. It's a really great starting point. I had a slim fatty before that, but I sort of upgraded, I don't know, whenever the sub fatty came out, I got it. And then this is the subsequent 37, which is the second model of the sub 37, which just means it has more features, an arpeggiator, and you can even do duophonic sort of things on it. It's just really, really beautiful. The multi-drive knob is on both of them, and it makes a huge difference when you're trying to get a little bit of extra girth and kind of fatness out of something. So down here to the left is heaven. This is all heaven. So when we were looking at the right, the distortion pedals were hell. This is heaven. Now it's split up into two kind of separate categories, with the general idea being the Hog and the 2-pole from Waldorf are on their own independent sends. So this is a brilliant multi-octave generator synthesizer. Now, I think people normally use it for guitars. I've never run a guitar through it. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it has MIDI, and it's something that you can have presets recallable via MIDI, and the general idea is you've got a fifth and then like up to 4 or 5 octaves plus an envelope and a filter that you can apply. So a lot of times I'll run something through here, even if it's a cymbal, let's say. By the time it comes out on the other end, it sounds like some super low-end pad or something like that. The signal goes from here into the 2-pole, which is just a really juicy fat filter. And it's got a couple of really great settings for the envelope, so you can have it trigger certain ways, either as a standard envelope with regular threshold, or it can be like beat or time or amplitude triggered, and you can do all kinds of really fun stuff with it. It gets dirty really fast, but that doesn't really bother me. Now, normally I have it deactivated because once I activate it, it's going to process, and usually it's kind of an either or with these two. So this is heaven. These are separate. So I think this is just called Hog 2, and I know that the filter's on there. So I'll kind of choose which one I want, and I'll either turn it on over here, turn it on over here, but probably not both at the same time. Now with Heaven, again, like most guitar pedals, it starts this way. It goes into a compressor first. I love all the Empress Effects stuff. I've got their EQ as well, just up here. Their boxes are just super clean and brilliant. So I run it through a compressor. Usually it's on maybe a 4:1 ratio. And then this is the Pog, which is actually kind of the little brother to this guy. So the idea is I have 2 different sets of envelope, filter, feedback, and up and down multiple octaves that I can blend and choose which one I want to use. I got these when I was working just before Evolve, which was a very textural kind of game. And I think I got this one first, and I loved it so much I ended up getting this one just so I would have kind of 2 boxes to play between. I didn't have to worry. This one is not recallable. So I kind of have a great setting for this, and I'd want to keep it on sounds from cue to cue, and then this one I would change via MIDI and do my preset changes. This is a reverb and delay pedal by Red Panda called Context, which is amazing. I probably use the word amazing too much, but it really is great. You can choose between a couple of different things, different halls, cathedral, even a gated reverb or a plate, and then there's a delay, and you can also do the delay and the reverb at the same time. And it's fair to point out these are all mono, and these are mono as well. Most guitar pedals are mono, so if you're thinking about doing outboard gear and running it through guitar pedals, 90% of the gear available is going to be in mono, and that's not bad. It just means you have to think about how you want to use it and what you want to do with it. A lot of times, if I'm processing it 100% wet, like maybe through here, I'll just put some reverb and delay on it to make it a little more stereo. Other times, if I'm doing a blend and it's not 100% wet, I'll actually have this signal straight up in the middle. There we go, straight up in the middle like that. And then the left and the right are being filled in by the original sound. So great reverb and delay here, more great delay. These are all analog too, let me mention that. Analog delay here. What I love about both of these boxes is there's no delay time. You can't say, I want it to sync to 1/8 notes. You have to actually tweak the knob and figure out what sounds good. And what I really like about that is you end up getting imperfect delays. Plus you're sending out into the analog world, bucket brigade delays and all different kinds of chips and stuff. It just gives it a different sound. It's completely different. I think Sound Toys comes close. They're incredible, and their delay is really, really nice, and it's got all kinds of great presets. But I see this as like other sets of presets, basically. And then I've got this wonderful 3-band EQ from Empress Effects. And what I love about this is it's got a low, mid, and high gain sweepable Q on all of them, plus 3 different settings, and sweepable frequency between all of them, and they overlap. So you really have a lot of flexibility. And then 3 different cue widths, which is really great. Plus, there's a boost and it's got a pad on it. So really, when I run through this, it's like I can dial in some compression, change the pitch, add a little bit of reverb and delay if I want to, add some more delay, and then EQ it, and it's completely transformed the sound. Now, if we move over to the far right, we get to the creme de la creme of outboard effects. To be fair, Eventide is incredible, and Space is one of 4 effects that they have. They have other ones, delays and pitch changing pedals, and they're all stereo and they're all MIDI recallable. And they all sound great. I first fell in love with Strymon when I was looking for a chorus. And I just couldn't believe how amazing everything they did sounded. Now the trick with Strymon, and all 3 of these are Strymon, so this is a modulation machine basically. This is reverb, and this is delay. And what's beautiful about Strymon, everything that they process is digital. So it's all digital modeling, but it's digital done so amazingly well. Literally each one of these boxes has, I think, 12 different effects built into it. Now, yes, the reverb box is all reverb, but it's 12 different kinds of reverb. And with those knobs and everything, it's infinitely tweakable. They're all stereo, and the biggest thing I love about them is they're all MIDI recallable, just like the Space pedal. So any tweaks I do, any presets I have, any automation I want to record, all records via MIDI. And just like the Space pedal, they have a phenomenal app that you can pull up that runs as a librarian and an editor and does anything you need. Now on the left, I said the Hog and the 2-Pole were on their own processing chain, and then Heaven is on its own processing chain. Each one of these is independent stereo. So I can send to a delay, a reverb, and some sort of modulation. Let's say auto swell is a cool one, and have independent control of all 3 of those stereo ins and outs. So that means I'm eating up 2, 4, 6 inputs and outputs on my hardware, of which I have 48, 50, I don't know, 52 ins and outs. So we're looking at a good percentage, like almost, 10% of my ins and outs are right here. But it's totally worth it because they sound so amazing. They're completely clean and just really have a different kind of sound. And I think that's what a lot of this comes down to for me. Using this hardware gives me a different sound. I have different choices. I make different decisions when I'm tweaking the knobs. There's something about touching physical knobs and moving around in my chair, walking around the room. It inspires me to do things differently than I would if I were clicking a mouse and trying to turn a wheel on a computer screen. That's the biggest thing that I love about all this stuff. And it's like the added bonus is basically no one's going to run this stuff the same way that I do. So if I send something to Heaven and then put a flanger on it from this, that's going to be a completely unique effect and a unique sound that no one else is going to have. And honestly, it wasn't until I was working on Evolve that I realized how much potential was sitting here, because I had them set up to do guitars. I did not have all of these yet, but I had my guitar pedals, probably 20 or 25, all staged to do specifically guitar processing and effects and things like that, but just with guitars. And I'll talk about Evolve. We'll do a separate episode on that and how I sort of got into discovering the sound for that score. But since I had everything set up, I basically stumbled upon, by accident, a really cool idea of processing, and it really shaped the sound of the entire score thanks to all of these pedals. Much better. Back to our original lighting scheme. So don't fret if you have questions or want more details about some of the specific gear that I was talking about. I'm going to be doing things on using hardware in your software setup, using synthesizers outboard in your software setup. We'll go into more detail about all that stuff. This was just a cursory glance and an overview at how I like to work. And next time, we're going to be going to the machine room and the drum room and, ooh, how exciting, the instrument storage room.